Today, as our late colleagues go to their final resting place, may the Lord be with them forever, and may they rest assured that the nation will remain ever grateful to them for their services and sacrifice. To the families of the deceased, I know that at times like this, no word of comfort can sufficiently console or heal your wound. My plea to you, however, is to take solace in God, who is the greatest comforter. I therefore encourage you to be consoled by the knowledge that the entire nation grieves with you on the loss of these shining, amiable, and patriotic Nigerians who have laid down their lives in the service of their fatherland. I also pray that time is the searing pain of today. On our part, we shall do all that is possible to mitigate whatever hardship their death will bring. Let me at this point once more convey the condolences of the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, on the untimely death of these our great colleagues. The President appreciates the great sacrifice of these great Nigerians and other members of the Armed Forces of Nigeria who have continued to make selfless sacrifices to restore enduring peace to our nation. He is equally committed to doing all that is necessary to support the armed forces in carrying out its responsibility of defending territorial integrity of our nation. On our part, the armed forces, we wish to reinstate our profound commitment and unalloyed loyalty to the President as he continues to lead the nation's collective effort to tackling the security challenges bedeviling the nation. In concluding the interment ceremony, we fervently pray for all our departed colleagues who have paid the supreme price in the cause of defending the integrity of our dear nation. As Nigerians, we will persevere, taking strength from their shining legacies of service. The memories of their service shall forever be blessed, and their sacrifice shall never be forgotten. I thank you all for coming. May God continually bless our dear country, Nigeria, and keep our land forever prosperous and free. Amen.
Thank you, sir. We'll be having the homily now, as I invite the Director of Chaplaincy Protestants, Group Captain Reverend Dr. D.B. Gani, for this segment.
Praise the Lord. I greet you all in Jesus' name.
And our correspondent, Arise political editor, Sumner Sambo, we understand that family members of the late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru are present there now. Have you been able to speak with any of them, either his family members or other family members of the 6 senior officers who unfortunately lost their lives? And how many of them are able to be present at this procession?
Down here at the National Mosque, but a few of them who are here are unable to talk because it's a very sad moment for the families, and you can see them at the moment taking a preview of the remains of their late family heads, and the very first ambulance here, which you can see right now, is that of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Attahiru.
The Army, the Navy, and the Nigerian Air Force for such a great loss. I believe that God himself, who allowed it, knows how he will bring us out of this trial. For the family members of the deceased, I do say no amount of words can give you peace. But my prayer is that the whispering voice of the Lord will speak to your heart. All that a man will come and say is to give you and say, take heart. But only God knows what is passing in your heart. And I said, God who searches the heart knows where your heart is this moment. And be rest assured, he will never fail you. Men may fail you, but God will never fail. He remains God forever. And I pray God will speak his peace even into our hearts at this hour. The Lord grant us every grace in Jesus' name. The CDS, the service chiefs, I said, accept our deepest condolences in Jesus' name. And amen. Amen. Our gracious and eternal Father, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the omnipotent, the omnipresent, the omniscient God, the one and only true God who sees and knows and understands all things. You are the Alpha and the Omega. You are the beginning and the end. You are the first and the last, the mighty man in battle, the Holy One of Israel, the King of kings and the Lord of lords. Before you we bow our heads this moment with our hearts heavy, Lord, for that which you have allowed to happen. Daddy, we cannot question you, but you knows why. Grant us grace to see you the more. Grant us grace to understand you more. Grant us grace to experience you more. That even in the midst of trials and challenges, you remain God. You never fail. May our faith be lifted unto you more and more this moment. The entire nation, the entire armed forces, we are sorrow, we are broken, we are devastated. We ask for your grace. We ask for your strength. We ask for your comfort. We ask for your peace. And we ask for your strength at this hour. Thank you because you are faithful. You are dependable and trustworthy. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for being here with us. Take absolute control. In Jesus' name we have prayed. And let the church shout a better amen. Amen. And amen. Well, we are about to pray. Our daddy and the secretary to the government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, just walk in. You are highly welcome, sir. It's a pleasure having you. Let the Lord strengthen us. I believe he's representing the presidency, and the Lord strengthen you. In our midst too, we have the representative of the Ministry of Defense, who is also here. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much. In our homily this afternoon, may we open to Psalm number...
All right, we're still on the developing story of the funeral of Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru and others. We have our political editor, Sumner Sambo, also on ground. Sumner, earlier you were talking about the family members, which we can see on the screen right now. So what more can you tell us about that?
Well, me right now, and family members have been allowed to get into each of the ambulances. We have just been through without the chief staff, so we have other ones going through right now. And, each of the family is allowed to get into the vehicle, and once they get into the vehicle, they offer their prayers. And once they offer their prayers, then they'll be given opportunity to come out of it. And I can tell you, it's a difficult moment for the families right here. You can see, the wives, you can see the children. Some of the kids are very young, very, very young. Some of them as young as 4, 5, 6 years. And, there's a free flow of tears here as the nation mourns along with these families. It's a very difficult period, I can tell you. Even military men are crying here. You can see one of the generals here taking a look at the corpse of the chief of army staff, and he just began shedding tears. These are colleagues who served together, who were classmates in one way or the other, who had been happy on the appointment of General Attahiru. Sometime in January, when he became the chief of army staff, you can see other members who are happy about this very sad development as the nation mourns along with the military. It's a very tough time, and I can tell you a lot of us are also heartbroken here. we see military men who have given all that they can to this nation actually seeing their deputy commander-in-chief actually go down just in a crash. And I can tell you other military commanders have all besieged the National Mosque here, and they are all here to bid farewell to these gentlemen, soldiers, and some have described them as being amongst the finest that the country can produce. A lot of people are in such a pensive mode that you can hardly see them doing any other thing other than to shed tears. And we can see other family members all right here still going through the remains of the late generals that have been buried here. And it's a terribly sad one.
A most regrettable farewell there, I must say. Well, Sumner Sambo, as tributes and condolences have been pouring in from across the country, from the presidency, the Senate President, the Armed Forces of Nigeria, and even the opposition PDP Governors Forum. This is indeed a national tragedy, isn't it?
They think we've already had enough, but I can tell you it's a development, seeing lots of people coming around, because even the retired military generals are all here. And, you can see right now the retired military generals are all going turn by turn to see the remains of their colleagues. And cameramen are not being allowed into those areas, but it's not different from what we have been seeing previously. And in all, there are 6 ambulances here that we can see. And the lead ambulance here is that of the Chief of Army Staff. And we can see that a lot of emotions are all out here.
Indeed.
Very important for the country, indeed.
Indeed, Sumner, a lot of emotions and, of course, tributes still coming in. Now, what we're seeing here, prayer has been offered as well at the foot of the ambulances where the late officials, military officials, in at the moment. So, going forward, what's next on the itinerary beyond this moment?
The picture is coming to you right now. Also, the wide shot of the area where we can see lineup of the ambulances, and then with some protection in the ambulances by military men. You can see lots of Nigerians who are all here. They've visited the National Mosque here in Abuja to pay their last respects to these military generals and to the entire crew of that aircraft that paid the supreme price. And like some of the retired generals have said, it's always a difficult moment when generals like this are not lost in the battlefront, but due to accidents. And it has made it very painful considering the dreams of the Chief of Army Staff to ensure that Nigeria reaches terrorism and its borders. But unfortunately, he paid the supreme price along with others while on a visit to Kaduna, where he had gone officially for the personal parade of the Nigerian Army Depot in Zaria, and he had stopped by in Kaduna before his onward journey to that city in northern Nigeria. And so right now, we can still see the ambulances trying to close their doors as they finalize arrangements for the prayers. Any moment from now, the chief of the nation was calling on the remains to be brought to him before.
All right, Sumner. We understand you're at the National Mosque as we see live feeds there with the ambulances and the body of the Chief of Army Staff and 6 other senior military officials, although some of them are at the Nigerian Air Force Protestant Church in Abuja. So the question is, will they all be jointly interred? We understand the interment is supposed to take place at the National Military Cemetery, Abuja. Will that be jointly done?
Well, from the information we have heard, it's meant to be jointly done at the same time, and they will be taken from here, conveyed directly to the National Military Cemetery, from where all of this will be done, and then we'll have the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, coming up. He's based on the funeral program of the military, expected to be there, but we do not know as of now if he is going to be physically there.
All right. Sumner, if you can hear us, have there been any further statement from the government over this unfortunate incident?
Well, apart from the statements released last night, we haven't had much. The only statement released earlier today was by the Army spokesman, General Yerima, where he has said that the timing of this funeral had been shifted from 10 to 12:30, which is what we are witnessing at the moment. So apart from that, we haven't really heard much from the military or the government. Right now, the most important thing before the government is to ensure that the funeral is done quickly, and then from there, the burial will take place at the National Military Cemetery, from where all the proceedings are expected to have been concluded by 4 p.m. Nigerian time.
A robust investigation has been ordered. Do we know how quickly we will hear any information about this?
Well, that's difficult to say, considering that the Beechcraft aircraft, a similar aircraft that had crashed in February within the precincts of the Abuja International Airport, is yet to be submitted. That report is yet to be submitted by the Accident Investigation Bureau set up with the military. For the civilian authorities are also working with them to see what actually happened. So if that has not been submitted, we do not know how long this may actually take. So to give them the benefit of doubt, it may actually last another 3 to 4 months or even 6 months, because the authorities will have to get at the root of this matter to find out what actually happened, that we're having this particular aircraft category being involved in accident twice in about 3 months. And don't forget, there's also another fighter jet that got involved in an accident in Kaduna State. That is still going right now. The investigation is still ongoing. So in all, it may still take some time before the final report is out.
Sumner, now, in scenarios of sudden death in the military, what are the protocols you think involved over taking care of loved ones left behind?
Well, the military has a robust policy for taking care of their deceased ones, especially senior officers like this. So I can tell you that based on what we have seen previously, especially in the tenure of the former Chief of Army Staff, General T.Y. Tukur-Buratai, the military actually ensures that all welfare issues are really taken care of, and of course most times they even put younger children in scholarship. They give them scholarships, and then they also ensure that all their entitlements are paid. And the Nigerian government says it has ensured that the welfare packages of all military men that are lost, not only in accidents like this, but also in the theater of operations, are adequately taken care of. And whenever unfortunate issues like this occur, where we have soldiers paying the supreme price, all that is necessary to be done are usually done. And don't forget, the Minister of Defense had some time ago, during the launch of the emblem of the Nigerian Legion, on January 15, told the nation that indeed the welfare of the military will continue to be the priority of the Buhari administration, because soldiers are continuing to pay the supreme price for the welfare and security of the nation.
Sumner, tell us the notable dignitaries present at this burial proceedings.
At the moment, we are yet to see any top government official present. Most of them have been outlined to make an appearance at the funeral prayer, at the funeral prayers at what's it called, the final burial. Actually, it's the final burial at the National Cemetery where you intend to see all of them. The Chief of Defense Staff will be accompanied alongside the Minister of Defense, and of course the hierarchy will go below, and then we also have the Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammadu Buhari, which is officials also on all of this person. So whatever is going on right here is merely an appearance by family members, associates of the deceased, and then extended family members, and all of that, all coming to pay their last respect here. And immediately after this it is done, the next phase will now be the funeral prayers that will be said by the Chief Imam of the National Mosque here in Abuja, and then from here, the corpses will be taken to the National Military Cemetery along the airport road in Abuja.
Indeed, now, there were initial fears that the Chief of Army Staff, late Chief of Army Staff, wife was on board the ill-fated aircraft which eventually crashed, but that has been disputed. Do you know what informed that initial belief?
Well, the initial statement or report emanating from Kaduna was based on the fact that they had thought that the wife of the Chief of Army Staff had accompanied him to Kaduna, being his home state, and considering that the wife and the children actually live in Abuja here, and he was going to have a stopover in Kaduna, they had thought, some of the newspapers had thought that she accompanied him alone, but that was not the case, as eventually it was proven that she was not in that aircraft, and that it was purely a military affair. All persons who were in that aircraft were all military personnel, both from the Nigerian Army and then the Nigerian Air Force. And as such, it was some sort of good news in the midst of the relief, in the midst of the outrage that had greeted that air crash, where a lot of people had said that that information was actually very disturbing, because if it was true, then honestly, it would be a very sad development for the Attahirus. But when that information came out, especially from the Chief of Staff to the Kaduna State Governor, it was some sort of good news in the midst of that bad news yesterday.
Sumner Sambo, just before you go, let me just ask you one more question. The death of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, I beg your pardon, we have another correspondent, Christian Ogodo, who is standing by for us, his Arise General Editor. Christian Ogodo, good to have you join us this time. Where are you? And tell us what is happening where you are.
If you look behind me here, you'll find that the military personnel are already rehearsing how the burial ceremony is going to be held. Already, the final resting places, if you look from the distance to my right, have already been dug. And of course, the lead grave there is that of the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, and is followed by two other brigadier generals who were with him in that ill-fated crash yesterday evening. So all is set here at the National Military Cemetery. All the formation, some of the top brass of the Nigerian military have started arriving. We know that at the NAF base in Abuja here, the Catholic service, the Christian or church service is already on and about being concluded before they remain to brought here to the National Military Cemetery. One thing about the National Military Cemetery is that it is reserved for those officers and men who die in the service of the nation. And you'll agree with me that the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Attahiru, is one soldier that has seen battles tested on the battlefield. And since he was announced as the 21st Chief of Army Staff is always been going back and forth from the battlefield to see the officers and men who are prosecuting the war against insurgents in the epicenter, Maiduguri, Yobe, Zamfara, and where have you. He's been there all. And of course, during his last days, after the national prayers at the mosque yesterday, we were told that he was flying to Kaduna to go and supervise the passing out parade of about 80 soldiers at the Nigerian military depot in Zaria. That's the kind of commitment, that is the kind of dedication, that is the kind of integrity, that is the kind of bravado that, you know, you'd ascribe to the late Chief of Army Staff, Ibrahim Attahiru. Fade Ani?
Christian, now can you give us an inkling as to the dignitaries that will be attending this event?
Well, we're going to have the other service chiefs coming, that is the chiefs of the naval staff and the chief of the Air Force. They are going to be here. Other military brass, top generals, either from the DMI, the NIA, and the rest are expected here. I know that the Minister of Information is expected, and other ministers in the cabinet will be expected. The actual ceremony here at the National Military Cemetery is supposed to kick off at about 1:30. But some of the things you're saying here, particularly the ceremonial military parade, is a dress rehearsal, what they call a dress rehearsal, so that there is no room for the slightest mistake. No, in the military, no mistake at all.
Well, you talked about the dedication of the late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru. It may be early in the day, but of course this death creates a vacuum in security governance. Are there whispers of a possible replacement in terms of hierarchy?
If you just take that last line again, I was a little distracted. Are there whispers about what?
Of a possible replacement. Yes, yes, indeed.
Oh, well, that definitely will be too soon, you know, to be done. Yes, there is no vacuum, I mean, in existence. Anything that has life must be filled. But I tell you that not at this moment in time when the nation is mourning. If you look far behind me, you would even find that the military flag is flying at half-mast, but a lot of Nigerians are wondering why the national flag isn't flying at half-mast. These are men, these 11 officers, dedicated, patriotic Nigerians to their duties. The Chief of Air Staff and his crew could have left this morning for Zaria to go and attend the passing out parade of, I think, the 80 or 90 regular soldiers who were graduating from the military depot in Zaria. So, is this good for the memory of the departed? Is this good for the memory of these gallant officers? Gallant who are battle-tested like Lieutenant General Attahiru, who is a veteran of ECOMOG and several other United Nations combat peace operations and the rest. And of course, most recently, he was a commander. He was in the forefront of Operation Lafia Dole.
Indeed.
And Fadekemi.
Indeed, Christian. Now, the Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru is the second Chief of Army Staff to die in an air mishap in Nigeria's military aviation history. The first was Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Akanhon, who served between May 1967 and May 1968. So to a large extent, do you think history is repeating itself?
Well, if I got you clearly, because there's some slight interference, which is okay, and I don't want to stay in the way of this rehearsal. Now, if you look at the history of military crashes in Nigeria, particularly over 20 years, or you want to start from 1996, when we had that horrendous disaster where the C-130 plane killed 163 young Nigerian officers. It was like the creme de la creme of the Nigerian military then during the President Ibrahim Babangida's era. And of course, we had another one. Some of the survivors of that C-130 crash, you would recall in 2006, I think between June and September, crashed at Vandekia when they were going for a retreat at Obudu Cattle Ranch. It had some of the survivors of the 163 officers that crashed in that aircraft in 1992. And here, too, is their final resting place. And just like we are going to witness here later today, the final resting place of these 11 gallant Nigerian officers led by the late Chief of Army Staff. So the history is not really been palatable. You look at this year, in the last 5 months, we've had military crashes. This is the third. We had the first one in Abuja around February, March, which Arise News covered live, involving about 7 young, promising officers who went on reconnaissance to Niger State, you know, smoking out bandits and terrorists, and on coming to land at the Abuja airports to refuel and go back again, you know. That mishap happened. Of course, we still have the missing aircraft, another jet fighter with 2 pilots yet unaccounted for. And of course, this one less than 24 hours ago that claimed the life of, you know, the top brass of the Nigerian military, the #1 military man, Chief of Air Staff, Chief of the Army Staff, General Attahiru.
Well, unfortunate accident there. Well, as you said, this is the 3rd Nigerian Air Force crash in 3 months. How significant is that?
Well, I think it calls for a lot of questions. A lot of questions must be asked. I think the B-craft light aircraft is about 7 or thereabout that the Armed Forces or the Air Force has got in its kitty, and so far we have lost 3. And it may interest you that AIB, I'm talking about the Accident Investigation Bureau reports, have never been released. Whether they've been finalized, concluded, and some of, you know, the resulting incidents to these crashes have been made known and still kept secret is just a matter of conjecture. But how do you solve, you know, these incessant crashes like this if there is no collaboration between the military personnel and the civilian aviation experts? I think there must be some sort of collaboration. We know that the military, usually because of its own security concerns, will not make certain issues that they consider top security public. But I think there is the need for collaboration, whichever way we want to look at it, and thorough investigation should, you know, be instituted to see why we're having these crashes becoming one too many.
One too many indeed, Christian. I'm still going to take you on this issue. Now, still on the military aviation history, these crashes are mostly not in conflict scenarios. What you find out, they're usually most transport planes moving men and material to you know, non-conflict areas, except for a few. The Alpha Jet incident over a supposed Boko Haram enclave you mentioned not too long ago. Now, what does that tell you in that regard?
Nee, I must tell you, I got your question mixed up there. You know, in one breath I heard Boko Haram. If you just put it in a nutshell, if you repeat it, I'll get it. There is an interference on my network.
All right, sir. All right, Christian. Now, these crashes are mostly not in conflict scenarios. They're mostly involved in moving men and material from one point to the other. You know, what does that tell you?
Well, there have been some kind of whispering of conspiracy theories here and there. I mean, when situations like this happen, you're going to have different conjectures, you know. But insofar as it's not official, I think it will just be disregarded. That's what I would say. But, I mean, like we all know in aviation parlance, they say there are only three things, you know, on earth that will cause a crash. One is human error. Two is the machine, if the machine is faulty. And the third, of course, is strictly, of course, is strictly an act of God. I don't know if you got me there. So, but the conspiracy theory, sincerely, isn't going to be for me, because there is no way we can evaluate it. There is no way one can cross-check that. And so it is just imagination, not better put out to the public.
Indeed, Christian. And all these errors you mentioned can be detected.
Hello, Nee?
Hear me, if you can hear me now, Christian. All these errors you just mentioned can be detected using the black box. Well, I'll just speak with Nii now. Using the black box. So I wonder if the black box has been recovered. I wish Christian could hear and he could actually answer that question.
Yeah, if you look at the initial video that we've been, you know, has been out there, and you know, there was so much burns and debris, as it were. To a large extent, it would have been recovered by now, because you have a defined, you know, crash site.
And the good thing about black boxes, they're not damaged by any.
Not in all cases, because sometimes planes have been known to have, you know, crashed into the sea, and the
but
pressure.
But they do recover.
They do recover
the black boxes.
They recover.
So
but it's one thing to recover the black box, but is it in working order?
Intact.
Is it intact? So it's a case of, you know, getting to the bottom of it, but then again,
because, you know, like Christian mentioned, so many errors. If it was human, if it was the aircraft itself,
or the weather,
it would be nice to know, you know, like they said, the defense headquarters was a bit hasty in announcing that it was inclement weather. And I understand Christian is back with us, so I'm very happy that that is Christian. So I was asking you earlier, because you mentioned all these errors that could be responsible for the crash. So how do we detect them? Usually it is with the use of the oh my goodness.
Right,
we've lost Christian again.
Okay, we can discuss this.
Yeah, so it's an unfortunate, sad incident happening today.
When we mentioned this earlier, you know, when there's a crash of a particular aircraft, I think one of the safety procedures is to ground all aircraft types, wherever it is in the world, because it's not just about Nigeria.
Especially one that has been susceptible to accidents in the past, within the last 3 months.
But it has its own safety records worldwide. Also as well. So something definitely isn't going right here. Is it a problem of infrastructural decay, as it were? You know,
one of
perhaps,
the correspondents,
maintenance issues.
Yeah, one of the
Air Force
correspondents we spoke with, I can't remember which one. He said maybe a flight pilot shouldn't have been used, but a more senior member.
They will have their protocols, and it depends on the experience itself. If you feel good enough to have a pilot fly a plane, he has passed all the.
If you're confident enough,
then it's
you know, we can't blame
there's still a question mark on that.
It's so disheartening. It's so heartbreaking. Something nobody ever expected. This was a vibrant man.
And all right, we have just gotten information that we have to go back to the church, where The funeral of late General Attahiru and others is still on. That's the Protestant church, the Nigerian Air Force base in Abuja.
Don't ever doubt God. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. He's a fully breasted Jehovah El Shaddai. Nothing missing, nothing broken. Everything will turn out for good for all of us. And I leave us with the words of the last song that we just sang, coming out of the experiences of the losses of the writer of this song. He admonished himself and everybody that has sung this song over the decades. It is well with my soul. For the families, it is well with your soul. For the men of our armed forces, it is well with your soul. God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir. It is well with our souls in the mighty name of Jesus. We will all be upstanding as we will be taking the closing prayer. As I invite Colonial Reverend Father Magani for the closing prayer.
Almighty and ever-living God, we do well always and everywhere to give you thanks. Our desire to thank you is itself a gift to us. And so, Lord, we are gathered today to thank you for the gift of the life of these your servants and our colleagues that you have called to your side. Your ways are not our ways. Your thoughts are not ours. You created them without our consent, and you called them to yourself without our consent. To whom, Lord, shall we go if not you? For we truly believe that from the rising of the sun to its setting, you always listen to us. And so we have offered the souls of our colleagues into your hands. You never mark guilt. Do not count their failings against them. In your compassion, O merciful Father, may your face shine upon them that they may see you in your beatific vision. For the family they left behind, your graciousness be with them to lead them, behind them protect them, beside them support them, above them may you bless them and always grant success to the works of their hands. Accept their souls as holocausts on your altar. Angels of God, come to their aid. Receive their souls and present them to God the Most High. Grant this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, God, forever and ever. Amen.
We shall remain standing while the cupbearers march on with the corpse, and then we'll all follow suit to the National Music Facility, where we'll allow the family to all the papers. The corpse will leave, and the cells is changed.
They won't come to me.
All right, you're still watching Newsday, and we've been covering the funerals of late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, the late Chief of Army Staff, and others who were in that ill-fated crash that went down yesterday. And of course, simultaneously, we have been covering the event at the Protestant church, that's it, the headquarters of the Nigerian Air Force in Abuja, and of course the Central Mosque event in Abuja as well. And of course, our editor, Christian Ogodo, is also standing by at the Abuja Military Cemetery, as it were. And we can still see visuals of a crowd of mourners still waiting at the church, and ambulances as well, to convey the bodies where they will be interned. And the information we're getting is that all the military officers involved in this ill-fated crash will be interned together, despite their religious differences. And all is working at clockwork. There's military precision, as it were, and we're hoping to go beyond this point.
Well, the late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru will be laid to rest with the 6 other senior officers, top brass of the military. The thing is, they will all be jointly interred, the Christians and the Muslims. So they're going to do everything, and the military is making sure that no stone is left unturned and no mistake is done whilst the interment actually happens. Now, Ferdinand Duroha, our correspondent, is joining us. Ferdinand, is the service at the Protestant church still holding? Is the service over, Ferdinand?
Oh yes, it is over, and I must let you know that it was indeed, well, a very solemn one. Well, we had the Secretary to the Government of the Federation present, representing His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, and then also, well, we also had the Chief of Air Staff, Amal also. Well, let's not forget that all the Air Force personnel on board are Christians, we're all Christians, and so that's exactly why he indeed came here to represent them. By his personnel, I mean the Air Force personnel on board. 5 of them were all Christians, and that's exactly the reason why the Chief of the Air Staff was indeed here. So it's indeed been very solemn, and right about now, well, we're seeing the pale bearers come out, and then we will have that procession to the National Cemetery.
Indeed, Ferdinand. Now, the families of the deceased, were they present where you are? We saw that scenario at the Central Mosque in Abuja, where the bodies were being displayed in the ambulances for them to have a final goodbye, as it were.
Oh yes, well, we had all the families of the deceased present. Well, some of them wives, well, some of them siblings, but we had all of them present, and they will also be making that journey, with the pale bearers to the National Cemetery.
And how soon or quickly is that going to happen, as the service has just concluded?
Well, we'll wait and see exactly how fast it takes as regards the rituals, and that's because, well, with some of these things, well, there are their own rituals also. But I must let you know that they're trying to hasten most of the proceedings here. Well, we saw the church service did last for about an hour, and I've been to some other church services, memorial services like this. Well, some of them take as much as 2 hours. So you have the sense that they want to do everything possible that they complete this. Now, it's also quite a distance. Well, we're talking about 12 kilometers from here to the National Cemetery also. So, well, maybe in the next 1 hour we will get there, or perhaps because they will be going in a convoy, well, 30 minutes, they definitely will get there. But, you know, it's quite a solemn environment, solemn atmosphere. You want to look at them. Well, some of them young families, now wives, young wives of some of these personnel. And it's quite heartbreaking, very, very heartbreaking. You see family members around them, you see colleagues around them, you know, trying to console them. But how far can that go, talking about you know, family members that you did see yesterday, only for you to hear later in the evening that they are no more? Now, this is the life of, you know, our service personnel. That's exactly, we try to do everything possible to encourage them. It is not easy, but we've talked about this before. We have to get it right and ensure that, yes, we do not see such needless deaths anymore.
Indeed, Ferdinand, and just as you spoke, we saw caskets being lowered into the ambulances to convey them to their various destinations. Now, in view of this scenario, some have questioned the frequency of these occurrences regarding Nigerian Air Force planes falling literally out of the sky. So what are people saying about this? You know, I know you've spoken to members of the public. So what is their take on this?
Well, I must tell you, nobody's happy about this. Well, the Chief of Air Staff is not happy about this. Well, while the Secretary of the Government was indeed talking, Boss Mustafa, he did say that nobody's indeed happy about it. And I told you earlier that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabo, has indeed called for a thorough investigation. Don't forget, let's go back. In 2018, we had about 9, you know, as at 2018, we had about 8 crashes, and that indeed was what necessitated, you know, that House Committee on Air Force sitting. And, you know, they tried to find out exactly what has gone wrong. Well, 8 aircraft, you know, 8 crashes from 2015 to 2018. Well, a whole lot to worry about. Well, since then, we've seen a couple of, well, we're just trying to make way. Well, the Secretary to the Governor, to the Government of the Federation is just going by. So just bear with us as regards the footage. Well, so, you know, that indeed was necessary for, you know, some kind of inquest. But the question right now is, how far did that go? Well, come 2019, well, what exactly happened with the 9th Senate? How far, 9th National Assembly, well, how far has that gone? Well, we are hoping that we will see investigation. Well, as regards voices, I can, you know, tell you that nobody is happy about this. Nobody is happy about this. We definitely want to know what's happening. And then also, we also must not forget the economic impact as well. Now, these airplanes cost a whole lot of money. I can confirm to you that since 2015, well, as much as 23 aircraft has been bought, has been inducted, you know, by this administration. But it makes a whole nonsense of it all when we have 23 aircraft, and then you go back and then you see that, well, there are questions as regards, you know, the management of that, you know, which we have, and then there are questions about personnel also, which these incidents have indeed raised. But we want to believe that, you know, by the time, you know, the accident, you know, investigation will meet, and then we'll go through things, and then we'll come out with their findings. So we'll definitely know what is wrong. Why do we have planes falling from the sky? Is it manpower? Is it, you know, about management? Or is it something that we are not definitely doing well? Because this indeed calls for a thorough investigation.
There's a lot of movement taking place behind and around you there at the National Air Force Protestant Church there. So it is believed that the bodies must be being moved to the National Cemetery now for interment.
I can confirm that the bodies are being moved. Well, we saw 5 coffins carried by bill bearers. Just behind me, you can also see ambulance. Well, a quick calculation will also show 5 of them. But it's going to be a convoy. The Chief of the Air Staff is also in this convoy. Well, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation is also in this convoy. So we expect a long one, and maybe also quick as well, because we have road safety personnel, you know, around here, and then also several servicemen also trying to ensure that it is quite orderly. Well, we will do well to also try and jump into our own vehicle so that we can, you know, proceed with things. But you know, from what we get, well, events are almost getting to start at the National Cemetery.
Indeed, Ferdinand, but just before you go, I would like your thoughts on this. Now, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabor, has also directed an accident investigation board to find out the cause of this scenario, as it were. So what are people's expectations on that?
It's difficult to indeed say. And that's because, come on, let's go back to February. Where are the reports as regards that beach aircraft that went down with 8 Air Force personnel? Where are the reports about it? Let's go back to 2018. Where is that report from the House Committee on Air Force, and exactly how much has that changed the issues? Well, these are the questions that we definitely have to answer. All the same, we just hope that we will get things right. We just hope that we will have, an Air Force that can indeed, continue with its surveillance mission. And that is one arm that you definitely cannot undermine, the kind of efforts that they bring into the fight against insecurity. Talking about surveillance, and then they have been drafted into a whole lot. Well, don't forget that flight which crashed in February was actually when they were on surveillance during the Kagara kidnap. So the Air Force is involved in a whole lot, and then if we must have them continue to fly, then I think we must do due diligence to get this investigation and then get the reports and see exactly how we can help our airmen.
And Ferdinand, an integral part of investigations is retrieving the black box. Do you know if the black box has been retrieved?
I can't confirm that, but then hopefully it has. That's because, well, we saw the plane, let's not forget, indeed crashed in the airport in Kaduna, and then we did see, the fire service people react very, very quickly. Well, an hour later, we saw Air Force, personnel, who are usually around the airports, indeed cordoning that area. So I want to believe that, they would have retrieved that box, but then we will get confirmations and then circle back on this.
Ferdinand, and just before you go again, and, beyond the initial statement by the Air Force, has there been any update so far?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. Well, same story. Well, the Chief of the Air Staff did tell us today that, did commiserate with the victims. Well, he's here to console with them. He's part of this journey. He's on this convoy. And then also, I want to believe that a whole lot would be based on that investigation. The last time out in February, we did see a committee set in 48 hours. Now, we do not know. I can confirm then that after it happened on Saturday, well, we did see we did hear that the committee was set on Monday. So this time around, well, we're also hoping that such swift moves will definitely happen, and then let us know exactly what has gone wrong.
And you're currently at the Nigerian Air Force Protestant Church. Tell us what the mood was during that service.
Quite sorrowful. Quite sorrowful. It's about standing, it's about supporting. It's about supporting, their brethren. Well, some of those who indeed died worship here. The Air Force Base, this is the Air Force Base. Well, just to also remind you, well, some of them live around here. And so we actually saw neighbors. We also actually saw family members. We actually saw colleagues come around also. Well, I can also confirm to you that it wasn't just a Christian celebration. Well, we also saw some Muslims attend. And then talking about a Christian celebration, we saw the chaplain of the Catholic Church. We saw the chaplain of the Protestant Church as well. So, it's everyone standing together at this point. Well, this is the national, this is a national disaster, and so they are definitely treating it as such. And well, let's just hope that this indeed works out well.
Ferdinand, I'm going to have to give you a technical issue here. Now, the King Air Fleet Beechcraft aircraft is posted one of the best safety records of any business type airplane, but the 350, of which 2 now have gone down in the Air Force, stand out as the best. In this scenario, what does that tell you? And we still have like a fleet of 4 or 5.
It's difficult to say. That's why we are very interested in that investigation. That's why we will follow it to the end. And that's because there were some situations yesterday, and of course some of the reports that we heard was about weather. Although when you talk about the Beechcraft, well, we expect that it should have the facilities to indeed land even in some kind of weather. But yes, well, weather is always a challenge. And so we are just waiting to see exactly how much we can get from the investigation. It's going to be very, very difficult. I can confirm to you that even the Air Force themselves, well, they do not want to be quick to make statements. They do not want to be quick to give you any information. And that's because everybody is waiting for the actual information to happen. Well, for the actual investigation to happen, and then let's get findings from it. Earlier today, we were at the airport, but unfortunately, they didn't allow us, take shots. And that's because you also want to get a sense of control. They are doing everything possible to control it and then not allow things to spiral, although we have our own arguments that at least people should also know what is happening at every point in time. But trust me, we will stay on this, we will do follow-ups, and then we will know exactly what comes out of this report. Indeed you will. And Ferdinand Duroha, you have to proceed now to the National Military Cemetery. And whilst you go ahead and do that, let's take a quick biography of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru.
Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru was appointed Chief of Army Staff on January 26, 2021. 54-year-old Lieutenant General Attahiru was born in Doka, Kaduna North local government area of Kaduna State. He commenced cadets training in January 1984 and was commissioned into the rank of second lieutenant in December 1986 as an infantry officer. He holds a master's degree in strategic management and policy studies. He had a tour of duty with the United Nations in Sierra Leone as a military observer, where he facilitated United Kingdom military engagement, Operation Barras, in September 2000. He was an operation officer and later company commander in ECOMOG operations in Liberia. Also, he had the unique privilege of having commanded with distinction all through the chain of command in the Nigerian Army. Prominent among these appointments are Commanding Officer 146 Battalion, Nigerian Army, Operation Harmony 4 in the Bakassi Peninsula, Commander 13 Brigade, Nigerian Army, Operation Polo Shield, General Officer Commanding 82 Division, Nigerian Army. He was one-time Theatre Commander Operation Lafia Dole, tackling the insurgency in Nigeria's northeast.
The passing there of biography of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru. Quite unfortunate, sad tragedy for the country as a whole. Not just him, 6 other top brass military officers who passed away, as well as 4 crew members.
Indeed. Earlier on, I was trying to get Christian Ogodo, editor, to reflect on the fact that majority of these aircraft mishaps involving the Air Force has always been, I wouldn't use the word always, but at least majority of them, when you take a look at it, has been non-conflict scenarios.
Yeah.
If you remember way back during the General Babangida's regime, whereby all those the C-130 Hercules aircraft, which also unfortunately crashed, and the circumstances surrounding that aircraft, it wasn't even supposed to take off. Initially, the issue then was that the pilots were a bit apprehensive
about using
their aircraft. So when it comes to this scenario always playing out, you can't help but think, okay, could it be an issue of serviceability in terms of maintaining this aircraft? Or there could be something more. Yes, we talked about the issue of weather. We talked about the issue of having a senior member fly the plane. But, everything boils down to the usage of the aircraft itself.
Yeah, that's where investigation is very key and important. Now, within 3 months, we've had 3 crashes of this same Beechcraft, aircraft. Now, the point is, if you have a fleet, and a number of your planes have crashed the same make and then you need to investigate. Why is this happening? Wouldn't you contact the manufacturers of this plane and ask, find out, why are these planes crashing?
I would have expected a statement being put out right now that the Beechcraft aircraft or any other one is being grounded for the time being, pending that investigation. Let's
give them the benefit of the doubt. It's maybe too early in the day. I know we as Nigerians are grieving, but right now, and I think what the country is focused on is giving these men, a befitting burial, and then right after that, I can bet you, the Defense Headquarters has already said a thorough investigation is going to
and transparent as well.
Transparent, and it's not just about a thorough investigation. This report, this investigation must be made public. It must be conclusive. We must find out, what made this plane come down. Why did it crash? Sometimes they say the weather, sometimes the time of the day, and then you ask what time of the day was it, in the evening, what was the weather like? The Defense Headquarters says it was inclement weather. But
it still boils down to the fact that, look, over a spate of 20 years, we heard Christian talk about it, it's been progressive. These crashes have been progressive.
Yeah, one crash too many.
It tells you a lot about, progressiveness of that. It's not about, even when you take a look at it, the statistics. Before we came into the studio, I was, researching on how, compared to other Beechcraft aircrafts, in the world, but Nigeria seems to have a peculiar issue with it. And it calls to question, a lot of...
These are aircrafts being manned by military officers, people who are supposed to be experts.
You do have technicians who are experts in that field, in terms of aeronautical engineers and what have you.
And so you wonder why we have all these crashes.
Okay. We have information that Christian Ogodo is in Abuja, of course, incidentally, at the cemetery. So he's going to give us more updates on that. Christian, it's good to have you with us. So what more are you learning?
Okay, we're still having the dress rehearsal. You can hear the military band at the background, because as the officers are laid to rest, they are accompanied with beautiful renditions, sonorous and very sobering one. It's usually that we're going to have the last post, for example, and they're going to have the last salutes too for these officers. Like we all agree, they are gallant, they are brave, they are vivacious when it comes to the performance of their duties. Well, some of the dignitaries have started arriving. The former chief of the Army Staff is here, talking of Lieutenant General Azubike Ihejirika, retired, former chief of Army Staff. And more dignitaries are arriving. As they come, we'll let the public know. And just maybe for a quick reminder, Niyi and Fadeshola, the names of some of the 11 officers who passed on in that fatal crash. Of course, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru. We have 3 Brigadier Generals there. Brigadier General Olayinka, Brigadier General Kuliya, Brigadier General M.I. Abdul Qadiri, and we also have 2 majors, Major Hamza and Major L.A. Hayat. We have the 2 flight officers, Flight Lieutenant A.A. Olutade and Flight Lieutenant Asani. And of course, we have Sergeant Umar and Sergeant Additional and ACM Oyedepo. That's the list of the gallant military officers who came down in that Beechcraft light transport aircraft in Kaduna, the Kaduna International Airport yesterday evening.
And Christian, with so many of them being top brass military officers, what impact does this have on our military, would you say?
Can you come with the last part of your question? When, what?
What impact will this have on our military?
Well, it's nothing going to be negative because, universally, when you sign up to become a military man, to become a soldier, an officer, you know that the ultimate is death, death from duty and the rest. So that's why you always find the military men, they are always very, if you want to say vivacious, wonderful, lovable people, they are ever happy because they don't know when, their time will come. Like I was telling you earlier, before we went off and you went off to the church, here to my left here, you'd find the tombs of the 2006 Vandekia military plane crash that were going to Obudu. The first one to my left here is that of Major General J.O. Adesunloye. You have Major General A.N. Bamali, General Otubu, General Lemu, and so on and so forth. Remember that 14 of the people who died, 10 were generals, 8 were major generals, and 2 were brigadier generals. So it's just the life and time of, the average Nigerian military man. There is never any regret in joining the force, and I don't see this as dampening the morale. Rather, when, officers and men are being given this kind of national burial, I think it will, in one way or the other, soothe the hearts of the loved ones and the nation, no matter how sorrowful and sober the situation may be. They'll be proud of their achievements. They'll be proud of them for the gallantry, for the bravery, and, all that it takes to be a gallant soldier.
Indeed, Christian, no doubt the cemetery where you're standing on holds a lot of top brass at the moment. So has there been any statement from the immediate Air Force chief over this incident or others in that scenario? You think perhaps they could shed some light on goings-on?
Well, I think we're going to get a couple of speeches from this burial ceremony, and it is not really time for so much speeches, but one, of course, that it's going to kind of extol the virtues of these gallant officers. More of the top brass in the military are arriving, and I'm sure that the master of ceremony will be telling us who they are. But yes, I mean, it will be, I want to see the service chiefs, if the president is here, like we are told he might be here, or the president of the Senate, the leadership of the National Assembly, it will be a speech of encouragement. It will be a speech of consolation to the family of the departed officers and men and soldiers. It will be one of encouragement, not to dampen the hope and aspirations of the people, because the Nigerian military, Nigeria still has a massive war on its hands. I'm talking of the war against terrorism, the war against the insurgents, ISWAP and the rest, and that's the Chief of Defense Staff. He has just arrived, General Leo, that is General Lucky Irabor, is just being received, and he's greeting some of the dignitaries there. I hope you can see, our viewers can see that, yeah.
And Christian, Christian burials involve proceedings and prayers at the gravesite. Now, I'm wondering what will happen with the Muslims. Will there be prayers said to at the gravesite?
Well, I mean, it's the military tradition is a military tradition. They are going to say the usual prayers for the Muslims. You can see that if you look closely, you see that the graves are just side by side. It's only that of the Chief of Army Staff that is a little upward, and that grave is even lying just side by side with late General Bade, if you remember, the late Chief of Defense Staff too. So I don't think there's going to be any significant shift from the conduct of the burial ceremony. I was here in 2006 when the Vandekia 14 plane, the Donia military plane, went down for the burial ceremony. There were Christians, there were Muslims, and it's the same conduct. The Christian clerics will say the final prayers, the graveside prayers, ditto for the Muslims amongst them, and the Muslim clerics who say the final prayers as well.
Indeed, Christian. Now, in terms of the trying times we have at the moment, especially with the pandemic, what can you tell us the scenarios there regarding keeping safe?
Well, everybody is keeping safe, yes. I got my face mask, in my pocket, but once I finish this live hit, I'm going to put it on because the crowd is quite a distance from me. From where I'm standing, you have about 20 or so meters separating onlookers, civilian onlookers, maybe even some families of military personnel and the rest who want to come and pay their last respect. And you can see there what I'm telling you. Everybody, in a very sober look, reflection and the rest. And if the camera can just pan back here, he will see that the rehearsal is still ongoing. Like I said, the military, prides themselves with perfection, utmost perfection, and you can see the slow march, the shoulder arms, as they say. These are technical military words that you're going to see during the course of the parade, and there they take a halt.
Well, rehearsal ongoing for perfection. Christian Ogodo, time is fast approaching for these unfortunate heroes to be laid to rest. Once they are interred, what can we expect?
Well, it will be good night to them.
We are now at
only history
the Central Mosque in Abuja.
Them.
Okay, we're seeing visuals now of what happened at the National Mosque, Abuja, just a little bit earlier, before they will be moving to the National Cemetery. Well, since from the National Mosque, Abuja, just a little earlier, just as the bodies arrived, I suppose, when they arrived at the National Mosque much earlier in the day. If Christian Ogodo is still with us, you were saying to us earlier that the rehearsal ongoing is one for perfection. And I was just asking you, the time is fast approaching now for these heroes to be laid to rest, finally laid to rest in their final places. Once they are interred, what can we expect?
Well, it will be good night. It will be sunset for the departed gallant officers and soldiers of the Nigerian Army and the Nigerian Air Force. It will be their final resting abode, and it will, be history history that will be kind to them. History that will be kind to their memories. I met quite a number of colleagues who were lamenting and wailing over the death of Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, because some would tell you only a few days ago, he called me, he said, hey, I'm going to reach you, I'm going to see you, you're going to come to see me. And it was all sweet, sweet tales. Such memories, you know, are beheld forever. And when he talks, when Nigeria talks about fighting insurgency, I think history is going to be so kind and extol the virtues, the gallantry, the bravery, the statesmanship and patriotism of these officers, particularly the Chief of the Army Staff, who has been so battle-tested, and the latest one being the Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria. Father Kemi.
A very good, Christian. Now, the military cemetery where you are, is it only reserved for those who died in active service, especially in sudden circumstances?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Strictly reserved for such officers, you know. Because of course, if you have the military cemeteries virtually in all states of the country, but this is the one in the federal capital city, and this one is regarded as a national cemetery. So it is, yes, indeed, reserved for men and women of valor, men and women of great candor, men and women of great, patriotism. And that's why this place is a special home to these special military men and women.
And with this unfortunate crash, how does this impact the war against insurgency and banditry in the country?
Well, it's obvious that this is not the first crash that we're having, particularly during this period of the insurgency. We've had a couple of crashes, but that has never dampened the morale of the officers and soldiers of the Nigerian military. Rather, they are emboldened because they know that they have a task in hand that must be done, and a task that must be won.
Indeed, Christian. Now, note that there will be a replacement for the Chief of Army Staff role. Do you think to a large extent the rigors of screening, especially at the National Assembly, will be deployed here as well?
Well, I think the selection, appointment of service chiefs usually faces the best screening, the best tests, of these officers so selected. Usually, it's always the best of them. When you look at the history of the academy, it's either you find what they call an academy horse, becoming one of the service chiefs, or becoming a chief of defense staff. So it's a very testy test that they go through, a very rigorous screening exercise, because their CVs and their achievements are laid side by side, to buttress their military training. So yes, it will go through a great test of time.
All right, Christian Ogodo, do hold your thoughts now. Let's join our Arise political editor, Sumner Sambo. Sumner Sambo, you were earlier at the National Mosque. Where are you now, and what is happening?
Well, I'm just at the open foyer of the National Mosque here. Just here, a few moments ago, like you watched on TV, we saw the bodies of these late military generals being brought for prayers, and the National Mosque Imam prayed for these military generals, and immediately after that, they were taken back to the ambulances. They were waiting, 6 of those ambulances, and they've been taken to the National Military Cemetery right now.
And Somna, what about the families of the deceased?
Yes, the families of the deceased have accompanied them. Earlier on, they were allowed to go into each of the ambulances, beginning with the very first one, which has the late Chief of Army Staff, Ibrahim Attahiru, and then followed subsequently by other generals based on their rank. And each of the families were allowed to get in to take a look at the casket and then make some prayers. And some of them, of course, cried. Some of them were so uncontrollable, but they just had to do the needful, and which was to just face reality that their loved ones have departed, even as the nation mourns along with them on this very sad loss that have besieged not only the military but the entire nation.
And Somna, earlier I thought you were a bit emotional as well. But tell us about the top officials who will be at the burial proceedings now, and that's at the National Military Cemetery.
Okay, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Republic, President Muhammadu Buhari, is listed on the military funeral we have seen. The program says President Muhammadu Buhari will be leading a delegation of his government to be there. And of course, the top military brass led by the Chief of Defense Staff, who, if we are to rank it hierarchically, is actually like the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces. And then, of course, we have other branches of the military. Talking of the Chief of Air Staff is there, the Chief of Naval Staff is there. And then, of course, we'll now have other top hierarchy in each of the branches. And they will all be there alongside ministers of the government, family members of the deceased, well-wishers, and a lot of patriotic Nigerians, because I'm actually happy seeing that a lot of Nigerians have put aside their ethnic differences, have put aside their social differences to just come here, even though this is a religious ground, to pay their last respects to the late Army Chief and other generals.
Now, Somba, I know these are early days, but what about the clerics where you are? Were you able to talk to them, and what are their thoughts in conducting, scenarios such as this?
Well, let me just take you through how this all started. The funeral prayer started here, right here. Immediately after some initial prayers were done, inside here, worshippers came out, and when they came out, eventually we had the corpses actually being brought here inside the casket, and then from there they were laid right here at the front, and then the chief imam stood here, and then of course worshippers all right here, and eventually the prayers were said very briefly. And then, of course, towards this side, by my right here, we had the women group, which consisted of the wives of the departed military chiefs and other family members here, and of course, very young people around here. And eventually, the prayers were said in, everything just ended in less than 5 minutes. And of course, the chief imam was speaking, admonished Nigerians to always love themselves, saying that the Muslim community across the country is really in a huge mourning, and they are mourning along with the country, because this is a very sad development that's befalling the nation, and his prayers are with the remaining members of the armed forces, saying that he's urging the entire armed forces to remain very strong at this dark moment of their history, and to ensure that the security and welfare of the country continues to take priority in governance, while they support those in government to ensure that governance is conducted peacefully, and then in an atmosphere that Nigerians are not afraid to actually go out. So it's a call actually on Nigerians to be united on this very sad development.
And Samna, we know that once these unfortunate heroes are laid to rest, the next point of action will be investigating the crash. A very integral part of that investigation is the black box, as I have asked Ferdinand Duroha, but I want to ask you as well. Do you know if the black box has been retrieved? Well,
Fadeshola, that information is not available to Arise News right now.
Earlier in the morning, Arise News had dispatched its correspondent in Kaduna, northwest of Nigeria, where that crash happened. But when they got to the airport, the military authorities had cordoned off that vicinity of the crash since last night, and the airport officials told Arise News that they will not allow any civilian to get close to that area. Journalists are barred because this is a military aircraft, and then the military is taking charge of everything to ensure that investigations go on very well. So we are hopeful that the black box will be found, since it's not in it didn't crash in the sea. It crashed in a place that is almost a plain area, and of course it's not very far within the main airport itself. It's just within the precincts of the airport, and so a lot of Nigerians are hopeful that that black box will be retrieved, and then the content will be investigated, as the Chief of Defense Staff has already ordered the military to do. He's asked the Accident Investigation Bureau to ensure that proper investigation is undertaken. But that did not happen without the Chief of Defense Staff, through the Defense Headquarters, saying that they blame an inclement weather, in quote, for that accident that happened sometime around 6 p.m. in Kaduna yesterday.
All right, Sumner Sambo, would like you to hold your thoughts on those issues. We'll be right back with you. But right now we have Arise General Editor Christian Ogodo joins us now from the military cemetery in Abuja as well. Christian, it's good to have you again. Now, the incident happened in Kaduna. Are you hearing any updates from that region regarding this scenario? All right, Christian, if you can hear me, what else are you hearing from Kaduna as well regarding this incident, where it took place? All right, we seem to have some communication issues with Christian. Hopefully we'll get him back. But Sumner Sambo is still at the Central Mosque to give his insight on these issues as well. Sumner, it's good to have you again. I was asking Christian the other time about Kaduna State, where this incident unfortunately happened. Are you hearing anything else despite the initial statement they put out?
Well, we've not heard anything apart from the statement put out by Kaduna State Governor Malam Nasir El-Rufai through his Commissioner for Home Affairs, Samuel Laruwan, last night, where they had espoused the ideals of the Chief of Army Staff, who is now late, saying that he was a very strong general, he was a proud son of the state, and a lot of persons were already warming up to the kind of reforms that he was going to bring into the fight against terrorism in Nigeria, and then that this is a very sad development, a very huge loss, not only to the military but the entire nation, while saying that Kaduna State government has its prayers not only for the families but President Muhammadu Buhari, who is the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Republic, saying that Kaduna State will continue to unite with the central government to ensure that what needs to be done will be done appropriately. And of course, others would have expected that this funeral and then even burial would happen in Kaduna State. But when I spoke with a lot of analysts, they said these late generals and of course other officers died in service. They paid the supreme price. So in other words, they are the property of the federal government of Nigeria, and they no longer belong to the Kaduna State government or even the families. And so that's why they are being honored with a funeral and then, of course, burial at the National Military Cemetery. And it's only a very few members of the military that actually have this honor. And this usually happens when, members of the military actually pay the supreme price. This is where we are right now. And so all action will now be at the National Military Cemetery, while family members converge there, government officials converge there, and the military, of course, converge there.
Befitting burial of honor there. Well, Sumner, of course, as we all mourn the passing of these men, this death does create some kind of security governance vacuum in the country. How soon will a replacement be made, do you know?
Well, we do not know when President Muhammadu Buhari will do a replacement, but the military is a systematically organized institution that will always have field commanders doing their job. Right now, the president will definitely be under pressure to ensure that he gets an immediate successor, but he also may not want to be in a haste so that he doesn't take a decision that may jeopardize the war against terrorism. Because, you know, whoever is going to be selected would have to be vetted, would have to undergo serious security screening, and then would have to be found fit to be able to discharge the functions of the office of the Chief of Army Staff, because it's a very serious office, considering that the Army is the lead branch of the military that's prosecuting the war against insurgency across the country. So generally, President Muhammadu Buhari will also be looking at meeting with officials, consulting with a lot of both past and present officials, because it's like this is the very first time that the country is facing this kind of issue where the Chief of Army Staff actually dies while in service. So President Muhammadu Buhari would have to engage in consultation, and of course he has to give the family some time to mourn, including the military, some time to mourn, because these Chief of Army Staff and these generals died while on official duty. So it will be deemed politically incorrect for the president to just make an urgent replacement. So he would have to work with the system for a few moments, but that may take 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or even a month before a change is created. But it's all left to him, because there are requisite generals in the Nigerian Army that can be summoned upon to act while he's making a decision.
All right, Sumner. Now, talking about the composition of the cemetery itself, you know, earlier on we were talking about the top brass. There's a heavy presence of top brass interned at that cemetery. But in the military tradition, do you think, to a large extent, irrespective of their rank, you know, by the nature of the circumstances of which they died in the service of their country, does that have any inkling regarding, you know, how this plays out?
Well, the thing is that as it stands right now, the military has a very good hierarchy. Once the generals are being taken to that cemetery and they are approaching, of course, the sitting arrangement is all different, and then of course family members are well seated, and so in a nutshell, it's an organized engagement right there at the National Military Cemetery, where they will all be given a befitting burial, and then there will also be gunshots in honor of these departed heroes, and then of course government officials will take turns to make speeches eulogizing the achievements that have been made. And this is to also say that the Chief of Army Staff would have been completing 4 months on the 26th of this month, which is next week. And so in all of this, they would have to actually outline some of the gains that he has made within this short period that he was in power. And then, of course, you have the acting chief of military intelligence that was in that unfortunate crash, including the provost marshal of the army. And in all, we had 3 brigadier generals and then 2 majors, and then of course it cascades down up until the flight crew. So this is a very huge loss, but the military has a way of always organizing itself, and we know that they will do the best that they can in the best of military traditions to give them a befitting burial.
And indeed, once they're giving the befitting burial and they are interred, what next do you think will be the next course of action?
Well, what next is that we are hoping that the politics of all of this will begin. Because I can tell you right now, within the military, the search for a new replacement has already begun. They may not say it out, but this is what happens, because there must necessarily be someone who takes charge of that very important branch of the military, the army. And so as it stands right now, apart from the replacement that will be going on, the National Assembly will be resuming plenary on Tuesday. We hope that the Parliament will take time to also honor these fallen heroes who died, who paid the supreme price, because
coincidentally, this is especially the Senate takes charge in screening them. And you would agree with me that when they screened them last time for these positions, they said so many critical things about them and they found them very fit. So the National Assembly will also take the time to actually pay eulogies to them, and then from there, the next thing will be that the military authorities will start processing all their benefits. The benefits would actually be given to them on time. Of course, you know that this are the top brass of the military, so they wouldn't want to play with this category of officers who lost their lives and paid the supreme price while trying to secure the nation. So what will happen is that they will start processing the benefits, and sooner or later, the benefits will be handed over. But I'm thinking that the benefits will only be handed over when we have a new Chief of Army Staff who will do this presentation to the families. We've seen the previous Chief of Army Staff actually ensuring that the families of departed heroes are given, all that is due to them. And most times, emotionally, they even on their own go out of their way to add more. Because it's not easy losing families, soldiers, and all of that in this battle against terrorism. And so for anyone to have been lost to this fight against terrorism, it means that the person actually served the nation to his or her best. And so, as such, the entitlements will be given to them as and when due.
Indeed, Sumner. Now, it's still early days regarding the nature of this crash, as it were. But what about the makers of this aircraft, Beechcraft? Are you hearing anything from the outside coming into Nigeria regarding the nature of the accident?
Well, the information we are hearing is that the manufacturers of that aircraft are actually interested in knowing why their aircraft keeps, getting involved in accidents in Nigeria. In February, we had one of the Beechcraft crashing, which was going to go and help rescue the abducted students in Kagara, Niger State, and it crashed within the precincts of the Abuja International Airport. And then just less than 3 months, we are having the same aircraft, Beechcraft, crashing again. So the information that we have is that the manufacturers are likely going to send a representative to Nigeria to be joined in the Accident Investigation Bureau to really find out what is going on. Because from what we have heard, they are alarmed that these crashes are only happening in Nigeria, mostly because for over 40 years that they've been manufacturing this aircraft, they haven't seen these huge sort of accidents happening with their aircraft. So they are very interested, and then the international community, of course, is also interested in knowing why the Nigerian military keeps losing lots of its aircraft, because in the space of just 5 months now, we've lost 3 aircraft in the Nigerian Air Force. Well, the Air Force also received 3 more aircraft just a few days ago. But as it awaits the induction of more aircraft, especially the Super Tucano that will be coming up in July, a lot of people are anxious to know what should be done, and if it's a human error, what needs to be done to prevent those human errors. And if it's an equipment error, which category of aircraft needs to be phased out of the fleet of the Nigerian military, and which one needs to be left behind. And of course, we have also had sources saying that, although this is politics, saying that the Army is unsatisfied with some of the things that have been happening with the Air Force. And that's why the former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, had insisted on forming an Army Aviation Corps, because they feel that they should be flying themselves. They feel that they should have their own platform that they can command at any time. And they feel that a lot needs to be done to invest in equipment for the Army, as air equipment for the Army, separate from that of the Air Force as is done in the U.S. aviation. But a lot of people have also said Nigeria is not rich enough to have a separate Army aviation, because it means they'll be buying separate aircraft while the Air Force is also ordering aircraft too. And it means we're spending a lot of money. And so there should be a harmonization to ensure that the best is given to the country, and then the country gets the best out of its investment in purchasing aircraft.
And talking about investigations after this aircraft crash, no report has been published since investigation into the last plane crash. Will this be any different, do you think?
well, there's definitely going to be a difference. Because this time around, a lot of persons politically are speculating that there should be a lot of action by the commander-in-chief himself, although the military doesn't like, the public or the civilian population is dropping into the activities, but that President Muhammadu Buhari should order an audit of the kind of aircraft that's being flown in, because himself also flies, the military aircraft, considering that Nigeria's presidential aircraft, the very first one, and all others are flown by this Air Force personnel. A lot of persons have attested that we have some of the very best pilots on the continent and even across the world. And so they are wondering if this is not a fleet problem. And a lot of persons are saying that if this investigation reveals that the Nigerian Air Force needs to phase out certain category of aircraft, then that should be done. The president should order the chief of air staff to ensure that that is done. And if it means that more aircraft needs to be bought, that should be done. And then if it means that more investment should be done, especially in military airports across the country, then that should be done. Because some persons have also said that the military aerodrome are not properly kitted with the right equipment. Because someone had told us earlier on that the windshield equipment in the Kaduna airport was what they were trying to make use of, because there seemed not to be anyone at the NAF-based aerodrome. So as a result of that, they had to go to the closest airport that was safer to land, which was the Kaduna International Airport. And if that's the case, then there needs to be a lot of investment in military airports within the country. And as such, this Accident Investigation Bureau owes a lot of Nigerians information on what has happened to the first aircraft in February, the one that got missing in Borno, and then this one that crashed in Kaduna.
Very good, Somna. Now, there were talks about expenditures on aircraft acquisition in the past few years, especially under this administration. Do you think, to a large extent, how will that reflect on what is happening now? We seem to be having acquisition prospects, but then again, we're also seeing scenarios whereby we're losing aircrafts.
Yes, President Muhammadu Buhari has actually invested a lot in the Nigerian Air Force, considering the Air Force put in place by the former Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, who ensured that a lot of platforms were bought, including helicopters that had night vision, other aircraft that had night vision, because one of the major challenges that Nigeria had was not having enough aircraft that had night vision to help in the prosecution of the war against terrorism. So that's why you saw a lot of investment in helicopters, a lot of investment in other fighter jets that have this capability to actually go out at night against insurgents. And then the president also ensured that the best platforms that will help in the prosecution of this war are the ones that are purchased. And that's why you could see him taking over $400 million to purchase the 12 Super Tucano fighter jets. And 6 of those fighter jets, the Super Tucanos, will be delivered in the next 2 months, precisely around July. And we are also hoping to see more. He has also invested a lot in the Army Aviation Corps that is about to be brought in place, and some aircraft were actually meant to be bought for them. And in all of this, the idea is to ensure that the fleet of the Nigerian Air Force is modernized, because there had been those complaints that the fleet of the Nigerian Air Force was not being modernized. But this particular aircraft that crashed is one that actually embarks on executive services for the Nigerian military, where it ferries top members of the military across the country. And it's unfortunate that this sad development happened, but we hope to see what this AIB report will be bringing. I can tell you that the president himself will be very interested, because if the Air Force flies him and other officials of government, then it's in his own interest to ensure that the best is done for them.
And Samna Sambo, you talked about diverting the aircraft because of windshield. I'm wondering, do we know anything about the terrain of the Kaduna airport that may have been a factor in the crash?
Well, the Kaduna Air Force base is the premier Air Force base in the country. It's properly maintained, and then it's adjacent to the international airport in Kaduna. And then there's also the Donia Aviation Company Airport, which is just by the side. It's usually called the old airport because it's like the very first in Kaduna. And as such, this diversion was done in the best interest because the military aviation is separate from the civil aviation. They conduct the activities separately. They have their own navigation system separately, and they have their own system that helps them, fly their aircraft in a different manner, because the military are trained especially to land in very rough terrain, in very rough times and all of that. But where there are challenges, they liaise with civilian authorities, and that was what was simply done. Since the military aerodrome could not be made use of, the next thing will be to land at a civilian airport or to go back. So if he had a clearance to land at the civilian airport, then of course that was what he intended to do. And of course he landed, and from the information that we got is that the aircraft skidded out of the runway and eventually it burst into flame, and sadly we lost everyone on board, every one of these 11 very patriotic Nigerians on board. And it's such a very sad development, but this has also opened up a new window for military and civil aviation authorities to have a conversation on what needs to be done when we have situations like this.
Indeed, Sumner, a sad situation. Now, I would like to take you back to the issue of the Super Tucanos, which actually predated this administration due to acquisition protocol issues and, of course, budgetary considerations as well. How is that reflecting on efforts to modernize Nigeria's Air Force fleet, as it were?
Well, the Air Force is actually undergoing a strategic reformation at the moment, considering that previously, because we had not had huge challenges as a nation, there was not so much investment in that part. Just a very few aircraft were bought for them in the 90s, especially during the later regime, the regime of later General Sani Abacha. And then since then, just a very few during the Obasanjo administration, and then it was left. But when this insurgency started, as at around 2009, there was an effort now to see how the aircraft of the military would be renewed. But it wasn't so much because the terrorists did not have the capability of firing RPGs and other missiles against our aircraft. But when that capability came into place, especially with arms flowing in from Libya, then the military had to request for a lot of investment because they needed aircraft that would be able to go around because we had been used to only the Alpha jets, mostly, and the C-130, transportation aircraft. But eventually, a lot of investment had to be put in place because the fight against insurgency had got to a very huge tempo. And as it stands right now, the government, especially in the last 6 years, has invested massively in this, and a lot of aircraft are still coming, and the president has given his word that until this terrorism is defeated, he will continue to do his best and also advise his successor to ensure that the military is modernized, especially the Air Force, to ensure that we have a new fleet that will be able to tackle insurgents.
Sumner Sambo, I would like us to take a minute now and try and reflect on the life of the man Ibrahim Attahiru. What were his achievements in terms of his career and position as Chief of Army Staff, albeit for barely 4 months?
Well, his achievements as the Chief of Army Staff is in the terms of policy making. One of the very important issues that he has said that he would embark on is troops rotation, because a lot of troops had been complaining that they have stayed at the battlefield, some for 6 years, some for 7 years, without a lot of them seeing their family members. Soldiers were deserting at a point in time, running because of fatigue. So he made it a point as an infantry officer himself to ensure that troops rotation is embarked upon by the defense headquarters, especially and the army headquarters, and
And then he also ensured that the policies for the prosecution of the war against terrorism are rejigged. And then one of the things that he did is that he took charge himself by visiting the war theater. And of course, he told soldiers during his visit to the war theater that yes, they had done a lot, they had achieved some successes, but he wasn't happy with the report he was getting that soldiers were deserting the army and some soldiers were running away from the battlefield due to insurgent attacks, saying that the Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammadu Buhari, had given him the assurance that all that is needed to be done in terms of warfare will be done. And of course, he said that the payments due to soldiers will be given to them, and then that wounded soldiers who even need to be treated outside the country will be treated. And of course, he started taking those steps. And then, of course, some of the reforms that he embarked upon is seeing how there will be a synergy between the three branches of the military, the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. Because, don't forget, there were some accusations earlier on by some soldiers who were grumbling. Some of his field commanders have said that sometimes when they ask for air support, they do not get enough air support on time. And as a result of that, the insurgents will have an upper hand. And so he took these talks to the Chief of Army Staff, and of course under the coordination of the Chief of Defense Staff, who is also a former theater commander, they were able to bring in place some very good policies that has been helping the troops at the front line to make some achievement. So within the very short time that he was in office, he has done his best for the nation.
Indeed, Sumner. And just to correct an earlier error that we made on the Super Tucanos, they had some turboprops mainly, and you have a difference between that and fighter jets, as it were. But Sumner, still on this issue, let's talk about the air support that you mentioned in this regard. If there should be an audit of the Nigerian Air Force regarding its fleet, how do you think this will be reflected on going forward?
Well, what we expect is for some fleet of the Nigerian Air Force to actually be phased out. Because even the Alpha jets that we have in place, a lot of persons had complained that the Alpha jets had stayed too long in the fleet of the Nigerian Air Force, and they needed to be phased out. And with the few aircraft that were brought in place just 3 days ago or so, it's part of that modernization process. And like you mentioned, which is a very good correction that needs to be made, those turbo propeller aircraft, the Super Tucanos that were ordered, are actually separate from the fighter jets that the Army is ordering. And those ones are actually brought in place to actually serve as a very rugged aircraft that can go into very rough terrain at different times of the day or at night to ensure that the country records successes. Now, because they are turbo propellers, they can land almost on everywhere, and then the successes are usually very, very high because these are aircraft that are specially prepared, and they've been used in Afghanistan, they've been used in Pakistan, and the success rate is very, very high. So in all of this audit is supposed to actually tell Mr. President how to ensure that our aircraft do not keep on getting involved in crashes, which aircraft category needs to be phased out, and then what needs to be done in terms of training, because training is a very important aspect of this. If we have the older generation retiring, what needs to be done to strengthen the training of the newer generation of fighter pilots that we have and other pilots within the military. And I can tell you that's why you see the Super Tucano that is coming. There are some group of Nigerian pilots that are the US now undergoing training on how to use that aircraft, and these are parts of the ways to ensure that we don't just purchase this aircraft, but we also have the right personnel to man them.
Yes, it's very important to have the right personnel to man them, but when it comes to procurement, just like the point we're trying to make, that it's a little bit slow and it's fraught with challenges such as budgetary approvals. Probably they've been inflated in terms of the prices of these air assets, as it were.
No, I will tell you, we have had those conversations at the National Assembly where the Committee on Air Force, which is chaired by Senator Bala Ibn Allah,
actually investigating if it's true that some underhand deals have been happening. And the National Assembly, as we know, has said that, for example, the purchase of the 12 Super Tucanos are well done. There is no any inflation, and then that the right things that need to be done have been done. And of course, when there was a request some other time for the Kanji Air Force base to be modernized to accommodate the Super Tucanos to serve as a home of those aircraft, of course, the military brought its proposal, and the Nigerian government did its best with the cooperation of the National Assembly to ensure that that passed. And of course, that area is being taken care of. And some persons have said that, look, these aircraft that are coming are rugged aircraft, so we don't need higher budget as was being demanded at some point in time. So there was a middle ground that was found in those places. Yes, in the past, we had had some allegations of the nation being shortchanged, especially in the late 90s when we had some of those aircraft being purchased for the Air Force from China and all of that. But eventually, those issues were resolved, and it's the hope of the nation that it's only the best of aircraft that is needed that will be brought for the country. And of course, you can see that Nigeria is making efforts not only to buy this aircraft from one part of the world. The Russians are involved, the Belarusians are involved, the Pakistanis are involved, the Americans are involved, and so it's been a potpourri of issues on how to modernize our military.
Indeed, Sumner. Now, we're still talking about the funeral of Lieutenant General Attahiru, Ibrahim Attahiru, and others who unfortunately died over a crash in Kaduna yesterday. And from the visuals, we can see the cemetery, the military cemetery at Abuja, where dignitaries, guests, and of course family members of the deceased are present. Earlier on, there were movements of the caskets of the deceased to be interned at the military cemetery. Sumner, a lot of people at this unfortunate scenario, what can you tell us about people's expectations going forward?
Well, the expectation of the Nigerian nation first is that the military will commit itself to the fight against terrorism, against banditry, against all sorts of criminality, and then to see how they can secure the nation irrespective of this sad development that has happened to them. And also, the expectation is that these military generals, alongside other officers that pay the supreme price, are well taken care of by the families, because a lot of persons have said that the worst thing that will happen is to hear that there is a delay in paying the compensation and, in paying the entitlement, so to say, of all these persons who have died. And not only these persons, a lot of persons are saying that every soldier, rank and file officers who has paid the supreme prize for the nation must be taken care of. And some of the junior officers we have also spoken with, and the rank and file, are saying that we must not as a nation be seen to be doing the best for this set of persons just because it's the chief of army staff that is involved and top generals in the army that are involved. That whatever is due to every soldier that dies in battle or while serving the nation, they are well taken care of. And then one of the things that a lot of persons are expecting from the military at this point in time is to be very logical in its prosecution of a lot of operations that it has. From the east of the country, we have an operation going on. In the south of the country, we also have an operation going on, especially the south-south. And then, of course, in the north-central, the northwest, the northeast, and all of that. But one very important detail that has weakened the military, which a lot of analysts have said, is that our army needs to be taken away from the streets, because we are doing a lot of they are doing a lot of policing job, and that unless the police is strengthened, we'll continue to have the army being engaged in issues that have to do with policing matters. And so if the Nigerian police is strengthened, it will take the army away from the streets in almost about 32 to 34 states of the Federation where we have them. So this is an opportunity for reform. This is an opportunity for the Commander-in-Chief to meet with the National Security Council and see how to fashion the best ways to make the best use of our our country so that the nation will get the best out of its armed forces.
Indeed, Sumner, and activities are hitting up at the National Military Cemetery in Abuja as we're speaking. Sumner, back to what you said, paying the supreme price, but in a non-conflict scenario, how significant is that?
Well, in a non-conflict scenario, we have soldiers, of course, having challenges here and there. And I believe that if you say in a non-conflict scenario, you would actually be referring to the insurgency, because there's a difference between the insurgency that's going on in especially the northeast of the country, from that of the internal operations of the army going on in different parts of the country, where you have separate operations that have been set in place, Operation Whirlwind, Operation Safe Haven, and all of that. So what they expect is nothing other than professionalism, and then for the army to ensure that while trying to help the police in keeping the internal security of the country safe, that the human rights are respected and that Nigerians are not trampled upon while that is done. And of course, it has to do with a lot of, management of the civic-military relations by the military hierarchy.
All right, Sumner Sambo, I'd like to thank you for your thoughts on those issues, but I'd like you to hold on where you are. We have Arise General Editor Christian Ogodo, who joins us now from the National Cemetery, Military Cemetery in Abuja as well. Christian, we've been watching the scenario so far. What more can you tell us?
Well, the casket, the burial party, or the burial proper, has started first with the casket of late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, being given the final salute, and the Beagle is going to go off now to blow the last post, and this is called the last post. And that's the last post for Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, the chief, the 21st Chief of Army Staff. And they are calling for absolute silence now in respect and memory of the late Chief of Army Staff.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, may I respectfully invite the Chief of Policy and Planning to lead the funeral oration of the late Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of Policy and Planning.
Well, like you heard, the Chief of Policy and Plans, Nigerian Army Headquarters, is going to read the funeral oration for the late General Attahiru.
The late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru was born on the 10th of August 1966 at Doka, Kaduna, and hailed from Kaduna North local government area of Kaduna State. He attended his primary education local education
They didn't allow you to stay there.
in Kaduna from 1972 to 1978. Where he obtained the West African Certificate
of Education. He thereafter proceeded to Rimi College, Kaduna, for his secondary education from 1978 to 1983. He was granted the Regular Combatant Commission as member of 35th Regular Corps on 20th December 1986 into the rank of Second Lieutenant. He was of the Nigerian Army Infantry Corps and rose to the rank of Lieutenant General on the 5th of March 2021 before his demise on the 21st May 2021. The late senior officer attended the following courses while in service and performed credibly well: Young Officers Course Infantry, Regimental Signal Officers Course, Basic Range Management Course, Advanced Range Management Course, Anti-Tank Platoon Commanders Course, Junior and Senior Staff Course at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Company Commanders Course, Company Commanders Course Infantry, and the National Defense Course at Kenya. The late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru proved himself as a professional soldier and earned his promotion as follows: Lieutenant, 19 January 1988, Captain, 19 January 1992, Major, 19 January 1997, Lieutenant Colonel, 19 January 2002, Colonel, 19 January 2007, Brigadier General, 19 January 2012, Major General, 19 January 2016, and Lieutenant General 5th March 2001. The late senior officer has held several command and instructional and staff appointments as follows: Platoon Commander at 174 Infantry Battalion, Platoon Commander 146 Demonstration Battalion, Platoon Commander 7 Guards Battalion, Platoon Commander Depot Nigerian Army, Instructor Nigerian Defense Academy, Instructor Infantry Center and School, Staff Officer 13 Brigade, Military Observer at the OAU, Democratic Republic of Congo, Staff Officer Grade 1, Headquarters 1 Mechanized Brigade, General Staff Officer Grade 1, Headquarters 1 Division. Others are Commanding Officer 146 Battalion, General Staff Officer Grade 1, Headquarters 81 Division, Directing Staff at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, General Staff Officer Grade 1, Headquarters 2 Division, Commander 3 Brigade Garrison, Chief Instructor, Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Deputy Director, Military, Army Headquarters, Military Secretary, Director, Army Public Relations, AHQ, Director of Commander, Headquarters 13 Brigade. He was also General Officer Commanding Headquarters 82 Division and Director of Administration Defense Headquarters. He also was a theater commander at the Headquarters Theater Command Operation Zaman in Lafia, Deputy Chief of Policy and Plan, Army Headquarters, Chief of Defense Logistics, Defense Headquarters, Chief of Doctrine and Combat Development, Headquarters Training and Doctrine Command. His final appointment was the Chief of Army Staff at the Office of the Chief of Army Staff, Nigerian Army. Late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru was articulated, dedicated, loyal, and hardworking officer. He was a calm, firm, but fair officer with a good sense of purpose and responsibility. He was a forthright general and a professional infantry officer who was genuinely committed to duties. In recognition of his meritorious service to the nation, late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru was honored with the following medals: Forces Service Star, Meritorious Service Star, Distinguished Service Star, General Service Star, Part Staff College Dagger, Operation Harmony Medal, Silver Jubilee Medal, Golden Jubilee Medal, Economic Community of West African State Monitoring Group Medal, United Nations Medal, Command Medal, Field Command Medal, Command Medal of Honor, General Staff Officer, General Service Medal of Honor, Nigerian Army Medal. It is said that from dust we come, and unto dust we shall return. Late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru has bowed to Mother Earth. His death is a great loss to his family, the Nigerian Army, and indeed the nation in general. We love you, but God loves you the most. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, here lies the remains of Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, a gallant professional soldier, a worthy son of Nigeria, an approachable senior officer who respected and cared for others. He always had the desire to add value to wherever he touched, wherever he served, and he lived on friendly and sympathetic terms with his colleagues, and has always willing to help others. He was a caring husband, loving father, and a great friend to so many, especially me. Late Lieutenant General Attahiru, adios. May your gentle soul rest in peace. Amen.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, may I have the singular honor and privilege to request Mr. President to please come forward and present the national flag to the next of kin of late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru. May I please request the next of kin to the late Chief of Army Staff to come forward for the collection of the national flag. May I at this time invite the Imam and the pallbearers for the lowering of the body.
Of the lowering of Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, the 21st Chief of Army Staff. Final burial rites being performed by high-ranking military officers, Major General they are. And we're going to have the final graveside prayers.
Your Excellency,
from the
Mr.
Muslim
President,
cleric.
distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, the special request from the family members and the Chief Imam is that we will do the prayers and the lowering of the bodies will be done after. Thank you, and we would like to respect that. Thank you very much, sir.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون اللهم اغفر لهم وارحمهم وعافهم واعف عنهم وأكرم نزلهم ووسع مدخلهم واغسلهم بالماء والثلج والبرد ونقهم من الذنوب والخطايا كما ينقى الثوب الأبيض من الدنس حتى يكونوا في بطون القبور مطمئنين وعند قيام الأشهاد آمنين وإلى أعلى جنتك سابقين اللهم اجعل قبورهم رياضا من رياض الجنة ولا تجعلها حفرا من حفر النار يا رب العالمين. Let us recite Fatiha and Qul Huwa Allahu 7 times. May Allah forgive them and have mercy upon them. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Qul huwa Allahu ahad Allahu samad lam yalid wa lam yulad. ولم يكن له كفوا قل هو الله الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا قل هو الله احد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا قل هو الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يكن له الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم هؤلاء عبادك أنت خلقتهم ورزقتهم وأنت عالم بسرهم وعلانيتهم. جئناك شفاء لهم فشفينا فيهم. اللهم لا تحرمنا أجرهم. اللهم يسر لنا كل ما تعسر علينا بتيسيرك ولا تعسر علينا يا ميسر كل عسير. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام. فإن ربنا بسلام ودخلنا لجنة دار السلام. تبارك ربنا وتعاليت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم اغفر لجميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات على الحياة منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. اللهم أمرتنا بدعائك وأمرتنا بدعائك ووعدتنا بإجابتك. اللهم إنا دعوناك فاستجب لنا. اللهم إنك قلت قولك الحق وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب الدعوة الداعي إذا دعاني. اللهم إنا دعوناك فاستجب لنا. اللهم إنا دعوناك فاستجب لنا. اللهم إنا دعوناك فاستجب لنا. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you very much, the Director Islamic Affairs, Nigerian Army. At this point, it is my honor and privilege to request Your Excellency and distinguished invited guests to please rise as we observe a moment of silence. At this point, it is my honor and privilege to request Your Excellency and distinguished invited guests to please rise as we observe a moment of silence. May the soul of the departed rest in perfect peace. Amen. Please be seated. Thank you, sir. Next is the Reveille. At this point, once it starts, I will also request that we all stand. Commissioned officers and retired officers in uniform, as well as warrant officers in uniform, are to please salute. The Reveille, please. Commissioned officers and retired officers in uniform, as well as warrant officers in uniform, are to please salute. May we please rise. May we please rise.
And as the general salute, and again the last pose for the late general.
May you please be seated.
Well, you just watched the last posts there, and the bugle blown, giving last respect to the late Chief of Army Staff of the Nigerian Army, Lieutenant General Attahiru, who had died in a plane crash just about 24 hours ago in Kaduna, where the plane came down in very bad weather.
At this point, the pallbearers are going to march in the remaining bodies. Thank you.
I've just been told the plane came down in very bad weather.
At this point, the pallbearers are going to...
Like we said,
Your Excellency, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, while the pallbearers get ready to march remaining bodies, permit me to recognize the representative of the wife of the President of the Federal Republic, as well as the Minister of Women Affairs, Dame Pauline Tallinn. You're welcome, ma'am. The arrival of the bodies of late Brigadier General O.L. Olayinka, the Provost Marshal of the Nigerian Army, late Brigadier General A.U. Kulia, the Acting Chief of Military Intelligence for the Army, Brigadier General M.I. Abdul Qadir, who is the Chief of Staff to General Ibrahim Attahiru, Major Noura Hamza, who is the Acting Deputy Director in charge of Finance to the Office of the Chief of Army Staff, Major Lawal Hayat, who is the aide-de-camp to the Chief of Army Staff, Flight Lieutenant T.O. Ashani, who was the captain of the ill-fated flight, Flight Lieutenant A.A. Olufade, who was the co-pilot on board, Sergeant O. Adeshina, and aircraftman O.M. Oyedepo were members of the crew of that flight, and Sergeant Omar was the orderly to the late Chief of Army Staff. It is worthy of note that all these fine gentlemen paid the supreme price in the service of the land. And like I said earlier, they all died with their boots on, which is the hero's way. It is indeed a sad day, knowing that we are losing some of our best, but we take solace in the fact that we know that their legacies live on forever. Thank you.
All right, if you're just joining us, you're still on this Arise special coverage of the funeral of Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru and others. These are scenes at the National Military Cemetery, Abuja, where victims of yesterday's Nigerian Air Force plane crash in the northern state of Kaduna are being interred. Eulogies, sermons and respect have been paid to the deceased. Military procession was conducted not too long ago to honor the dead with gun salutes and other respects as well. Now, I have with me in the studio my colleague Ibrahim Attahiru to also give its insight on this solemn event.
Yeah, one of the Major Generals, thank you very much, Ni. But one statement made by the Major General who gave part of the eulogy, which was this statement has resonated heavily, was the fact that these fallen heroes paid the supreme price as they died with their boots on, which is the greatest way for a military officer to pass on. It's really sad that this has happened. We've seen prayers being offered at the gravesite of this great man. And right now that the burial rites of Ibrahim Attahiru,
Indeed, Aaron. And earlier we also
Lieutenant
had...
General.
Yes.
Now we are now having the rest of the 10 being buried. But Lieutenant General Attahiru was fondly remembered. And the Major General who gave the eulogy was almost brought to tears at a certain time. While he was reading out all his accomplishments in his very, very accomplished life. And it's rather unfortunate we're at this point. Yesterday will always be remembered as Black Friday.
Indeed, it will
not
be.
just in the Nigerian military, but also for Nigeria, because we need all boots on ground and we need all men and all hands on deck in the fight against insurgency.
Indeed, Aaron. And what we can see right now are the bodies of the deceased being taken in by pallbearers, marching with a procession of military contingents, going to lay them where the earth has been dug up to have them finally on the ground. And, just like you said, Aaron, it's a somber mood, no doubt. And it's even more disheartening. This is someone who just got his appointment barely 4 months ago with so much zeal and expectations. And of course, he must have his mandate, and others as well, regarding how they were going to handle the issue of insurgency, conflicts, or whatever the security incidents we've been having for some time now. And earlier on, we were discussing the issues about what impact this will have on the morale of men and on the field. But of course, as we spoke to with our correspondents, there's always a protocol of replacements, as it were, and no vacuum is left too long.
Vacuum.
Yes, so you have to fill that and move on. Unfortunately, it's part of what you have to go through as a soldier, as a man of the armed forces. And I think it's part of the perks of the office as well, of the job.
Yes. They know what they always know what they're signing into when you actually join the military, not just the Nigerian army. So we're talking about the army, the navy, the Air Force. And some of the people that have been buried, as we see right now, the Chief of Staff to late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, talking about M.I. Kadiri, and also the acting Deputy Director of Finance, who was also in that ill-fated flight. Hamza is also being buried. Then the camp to the late General Ibrahim Attahiru, Lawal Hayat is also among those that are being buried, as we actually see him there. And also, Flight Lieutenant Olufade is amongst them.
Indeed.
And also his Audley is also among those who are being buried right now at the Nigerian Military Cemetery in Abuja.
Indeed, not a loss to just one segment of the military, but to a whole lot of others as well. And when you have a recurrence like this, there were issues discussed regarding How do we move forward beyond this?
This is not
especially when
the time
it comes to
trade blades.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is not the time to begin to apportion blades. This calls for a lot of introspection, and not just introspection alone. This calls for sober reflection, because this is indicative of the fact that there are lacunas, and these lacunas need to be filled to ensure this does not happen, because this is a very high-profile loss.
Not happen, or at least reduce the barest minimum.
I didn't get that.
Reduced to the barest minimum.
Yeah.
Because, like we said, the uncertainties regarding being in the military is part of what has been signed on. And you never know when incidents like this happen. The military man would want to rather give his life in the field of
duty.
Battle. Yep.
Yes, on the battleground, not when they were to perform a major ceremony today. It's unfortunate that did not come true.
And like you said, there needs to be introspect.
A lot of
on
introspection.
Moving forward.
Yes, because before we begin, before there are talks, we should allow the smoke blow away before we start talking about inquiries into the cause of the crash and every other surrounding circumstance. Right now, we need to sit down, reflect, ask questions personally, and also mourn these great men who have given their lives to this great nation.
Indeed.
And with the prayer and hope, that's all. With the prayer and hope that their sacrifice does not go in vain.
Indeed.
And is not forgotten, and it probably stands as a landmark for the future, that we look at this as the turning point whereby we say enough is enough, that we can do better, we must do better. And this was the turning point. That's
hopefully it will be the turning point, because you have to bear in mind that when all of this happened, there has to be a point of limit where you can say, okay, fine, I will look into this and find a way of moving forward.
Yes.
So I guess to a large extent, and that is the hope of many, that we could learn one or two things from here. Have we learned in the past few years regarding mishaps such as this one?
Because the record books actually have it that he is now the second.
He is.
The second.
Although the first one was actually during the Biafra conflict. You could excuse that, but incidentally,
it can still be excused because it's almost unforgivable to have a general pass away like this. This is a man that has given so much. Remember, he spearheaded the Operation Lafayette Dole at a certain time. These are men that have their boots to the ground, that have earned their salt over the years. To have them go like this, it's a grave loss. I am short of words. And condolences must be paid to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, because I'm sure he had high hopes.
High hopes. We saw just a few months ago he was decorating him with a new rank, and little did we know that we will be in a mournful mood just a few months later. And then talking about the dependence of the military personnel who have to go through all of this as well. It's
the dependence.
In terms of the families and relatives, what have you. They're also, in a way, those that give succor to them, when they're not on active duty, when they come back home and, they replenish themselves and everything. So, to a large extent, they are also,
they will be feeling the bite the most.
So,
because the hope of every dependent, the wife of a general or an active officer, is to have him go through the timeline and ensure he retires so they can come back home and live a civil life.
Indeed.
Unfortunately, that will not be happening as death has robbed the wife of the late Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru of this.
Okay.
Because at this moment in time, I cannot begin to imagine what she is going through.
And right now, we're still live at the National Military Cemetery, Abuja. where the bodies of the deceased from the plane crash yesterday. That's the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru. And of course, statements are being made. We have one of the military brass making a statement right now. Let's hear.
Umar Kulia was born on 2nd February 1968 in Kano and hailed from Kano Municipal Local Government Area of Kano State. He attended the Science Secondary School Dawakin Kudu from 1983 to 1986, where he obtained the General Certificate of Examination. Subsequently, he gained admission into the Nigerian Defense Academy in 1988 and was granted Regular Combatant Commission on 25th September 1993 as a member of 40th Regular Course in the rank of Second Lieutenant. He was of the Nigerian Army Intelligence Corps and rose to the rank of Brigadier General on 10th October 2017 before his demise on 21st May 2021. The late senior officer attended several courses and performed creditably. The courses included, among others, Young Officers Course Intelligence, Tactical Intelligence Officers Course, Junior and Senior Staff Course at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, and the National Defense Course at the National Defense University, United States of America. General Kulia held a Bachelor of Science degree in Mathematics, Master's degree in National Resource Strategy, as well as Strategy and Security Administration. Late General Kulia proved himself as a professional soldier and earned his promotions as follows: Lieutenant, 10th September 1993, Captain, 10th September 1997, Major, 10th September 2001, Lieutenant Colonel, 10th September 2006, Colonel, 10th September 2011, and Brigadier General, 10th September 2017. The late senior officer also held several command, staff, and instructional appointments, among which were Platoon Commander at the Headquarters Nigerian Army Intelligence Corps, Officer in Charge at 92 Intelligence Detachment, Officer Commanding 1 Intelligence Detachment, Second in Command 1 Division Intelligence Group, Directing Staff at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Commandant Headquarters Nigerian Army Intelligence Corps, Deputy Director Defense Intelligence Agency, Commander 3 Division Intelligence Command, Coordinator Theater Intelligence Command at the Headquarters Theater Command Operation Lafia Dole, Director Department of Land Warfare at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, and Chief of Military Intelligence, Headquarters Nigerian Army Intelligence Corps. Mr. President, sir, late Brigadier General Abdurrahman Umar Kulia was an articulate, dedicated, loyal, and hardworking senior officer. He was a calm, firm, but fair officer with a good sense of purpose and responsibility. He was a forthright gentleman and a professional intelligence officer who was genuinely committed to his duties. He had a remarkable conduct and overwhelming moral standards. In recognition of his meritorious service to the nation, he was honored with the following awards and medals: Forces Service Star, Meritorious Service Star, Distinguished Service Star, Past Staff Course Dagger, Golden Jubilee Medal, Silver Jubilee Medal, General Operations Medal, Field Command Medal of Honor, Corps Medal of Honor, it is said that from dust we come and to dust we shall return. Let Abdurrahman Kulia has answered the call of his creator. His death is a great loss to his family, to the Nigerian Army, and the nation in general. We love him, but God loves him more. Mr. President, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, here lies on this day, 22nd May 2021, the body of late Brigadier General Ibrahim Attahiru, a gallant professional soldier, a gentleman officer, and a worthy son of Nigeria, a caring husband, a loving father, and a true friend. Late General Kulia, may your gentle soul rest in perfect peace. Funeral oration for late Brigadier General Olatunji Lukman Olayinka. Mr. President, distinguished guests, late Brigadier General Olatunji Lukman Olayinka was born on 13th January 1970 in Lagos and hailed from Ikorodu local government area of Lagos State. He attended the Nigerian Military School from 1982 to 1987, where he obtained his West African Examination Council certificate. He was granted Regular Combatant Commission as a member of 40th Regular Course on 17th September 1994 in the rank of Second Lieutenant with seniority on the rank effective 11th September 1988. He was of the Nigerian Army Corps of Military Police and rose to the rank of Brigadier General on 10th September 2017 before his demise on 21st May 2021. The late senior officer attended some courses while in the service and performed creditably. The courses include Young Officers Course, Infantry, Anti-Tank Platoon Commanders Course, Junior Staff Course and Senior Staff Course at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Defense Management Course, United Nations Military Observers Course, and National Defense Course. Late Brigadier General Olatunji Lukman Olayinka proved himself as a professional soldier and earned his profession as follows: Lieutenant, 10 September 1993, Captain, 10 September 1997, Major, 10 September 2001, Lieutenant Colonel, 10 September 2006, Colonel, 10 September 2011, and Brigadier General on 10 September 2017. The late senior officer held several command, instructional, and staff appointments as follows: Platoon Commander at Headquarters 7th Brigade, Company Second in Command, Headquarters Nigerian Army Military Police, Aide-de-Camp to the General Officer Commanding 3 Division Nigerian Army, Officer Commanding Ministry of Defense Provost Group, General Staff Officer Grade 2 Headquarters Nigerian Army Corps of Military Police, Directing Staff at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Jaji, and Directing Staff at the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College. He was Commandant Headquarters Nigerian Army School of Military Police, Directing Staff at the National Defense College, and he was the Provost Marshal Nigerian Army, Headquarters Nigerian Army Corps of Military Police. Late Brigadier General Olatunji Lukman Olayinka was an articulate, dedicated, loyal, and hardworking officer. He was calm, firm, but fair officer with a good sense of purpose and responsibility. He was a forthright gentleman and a professional military police officer who was genuinely committed to his duties. In recognition of his meritorious service to the nation, late General Olayinka was honored with the following medals: Distinguished Service Star, Meritorious Service Star, Forces Service Star, Golden Jubilee Medal, Silver Jubilee Medal, River Benue Star, Fellow Defense College Dagger, Past Staff Course Dagger, United Nations Operations Medal, Command Medal, General Operations Medal, and Corps Medal of Honor. It is said that from dust we come and unto dust we shall return. Late General Olayinka Lukman has bowed to Mother Earth. His death is a great loss to his family, the Nigerian Army, and indeed the nation in general. We love you, but God loves you more. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, here lies on this day, 22nd May 2021, the body of late Brigadier General Olatunji Lukman Olayinka, a gallant professional soldier and a worthy son of Nigeria, a caring husband, and a loving father. Late Brigadier General Olatunji Lukman Olayinka, adieu. May your gentle soul rest in perfect peace. Amen. Okay. Funeral oration. Late Brigadier General Muhammad Idris Abdul Qadir. Late Brigadier General Muhammad Idris Abdul Qadir was born on 19th April 1971 in Kaduna and hailed from Agaye local government area of Niger State. He was granted regular combatant commission as a member of 42nd Regular Corps on 16th September 1995 in the rank of second lieutenant with seniority on the same rank effective 17th August 1990. He was of the Nigerian Army Corps of Military Police and rose to the rank of Brigadier General on 17th August 2017 before his demise on 21st May 2021. The late senior officer attended many courses while in service and performed creditably. Courses include Basic Airborne Course, Police Administration and Security Management Course, Junior and Senior Staff Course, National Defense Course in Bangladesh, among others. The late Brigadier General Muhammad Idris Abdulkadir proved himself as a professional soldier and earned his promotion as at when due. The late senior officer held several command and instructional and staff appointments as follows: Platoon Commander, 82 Provost Company, Enugu; Instructor, Headquarters, Nigerian Army School of Military Police; Platoon Commander, 81 Provost Group, Lagos; Officer Commanding, 13 Brigade Provost Company, Calabar; Adjutant, Nigerian Defense Academy; Commander, 82 Provost Group, Enugu; Deputy Director, Training, Army Headquarters, Department of Training and Operations; and finally, Chief of Staff to the Chief of Army Staff, Army Headquarters. Late Brigadier General Muhammad Idris Abdulkadir was an articulate, dedicated, loyal, and hardworking officer. He was a calm, firm, but fair officer with good sense of purpose and responsibility. He was a forthright gentleman and a professional military officer who was genuinely committed to his duties. In recognition of his meritorious service to the nation, late General Abdulkadir was honored with the following medals: Distinguished Service Star, Meritorious Service Star, Forces Service Star, Golden Jubilee Medal, Silver Jubilee Medal, River Benue Star, National Defense College, Bangladesh, Past Staff Course, United Nations Operations Medal, Command Medal, and General Operations Medal. It is said that from dust we come and unto dust we shall return. Late General Abdulkadir has bowed to Mother Earth. His death is a great loss to his family, the Nigerian Army, and indeed the nation in general. We love you, but God loves you most. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, here lies on this day, 22nd May 2021, the body of late Brigadier General Muhammad Idris Abdulkadir, a gallant professional soldier and a worthy son of Nigeria, a caring husband and a loving father. Late General Abdulkadir, adieu. May your gentle soul rest in perfect peace. Amen. Thank you.